We are roughly 2 months away from UFC Noche at the Sphere, sponsored by Riyadh Season, and we still have very little information from UFC President Dana White about the event. We have no idea what the experience is going to be like for the live audience. We have no idea what it's going to be like to watch on TV. And most importantly, we have no idea what the main event is, and we are roughly 8 weeks away. And I have a feeling the more I listen to Dana White talk, and we're going to look at a couple of clips here that I think are very telling of Dana White recently talking about the Sphere, I feel like the Sphere is shaping up to be a massive disappointment, to be a complete and utter disaster. And it just shows the history of Dana White overpromising and hyping something up, and then it can't live up to the expectations. And we're going to start off by looking at the majority of their promotion is UFC Noche, not UFC 306. That leaves the door open to potentially downgrade it from a pay-per-view to a fight night card. They just recently got Saudi Arabia involved because of potential money issues revolving around this event. We're going to look at clips from that. But most importantly, we have Ilia Topuria making a recent statement we're going to take a look at, ruling himself basically out of headlining the Sphere. We have Alexa Grasso alluding to the potential option that she's not even going to be fighting Shevchenko at the Sphere. And then also earlier today, Sean O'Malley made some damning statements regarding his involvement in the UFC Noche fight card, potentially fighting Merab Dvalishvili. We're going to start off by looking at how UFC Noche is listed on the UFC's website. To be determined versus to be determined. And then you see here, it just says Noche UFC. So there's no mention of UFC 306. There's talk about, Conor McGregor potentially, them finding a date for Conor McGregor. Maybe UFC 306 is going to be for Conor McGregor. There's some talk of Conor McGregor fighting at the Sphere. But I did notice once you click on this, it does say UFC 306 here. So that is very interesting. So I just wanted to point that out. I noticed that on the website, but we really don't have any information on the UFC's website. Now, if you go over to Tapology, we have confirmed fights for the Sphere. We have Irene Aldana, Norma Dumont. I'm not going to go through all these matchups. The best matchup is Michelle Pereira versus Anthony Hernandez. Straight up banger. But we still do not have a main event yet. And it's very worrisome. There's only a couple potential options. We're going to get to them in a little bit. But one thing I really want to focus on in this video is Dana White really overhyping this, really overselling it, and just giving vague answers. It seems like week after week, I'll give you an answer next week. I'll give you an answer next week. And I just feel like this event is going to underdeliver massively, especially considering how Dana White has promised and hyped it up for literally like a year now. Now, I want to start off by looking at this little promotional video from the UFC. And this is one thing that's always kind of piqued my interest is how are they going to set this up? I'm assuming this promotional video that is CGI is how they plan on setting this up, which I'm wondering how it's going to view for the audience, in the upper seats. I wonder how it's going to view on TV. I'm very, very curious. And I'm not hoping that this fails. I'm not hoping that it's a complete disaster. I'm just saying it just seems like every time Dana's asked about it, he's like, diverting and not really answering the question. But let's look at this promotional piece. That's the screen. Then you see the octagon. Again, this is CGI. And then you kind of see the seats in the background here. The seats. So it's a very unique arena. For those of you who don't know what the Sphere looks like, here's kind of like a cartoon of the Sphere. So it's very odd to hold an event in, considering you don't have 360 degree seating. You only have this like half seating. So the prices are going to be astronomical. Only the ultra rich elites are going to be able to go to this event, but that's pretty much Las Vegas now. Nobody shows up till the main card anyway, because it's people who aren't really actually fans of the sport. But when Dana has been asked about this time and time again, he's really not given any solid answers. All he's done is like, I got to do it. We're going to be the foremost experts. We're going to get Emmys. We're going to get this. We're going to get that. Here's an interview he did with My Mom's Basement. And I think this is a guy that works for Barstool Sports. And every video I show you in this video will be linked down in the description. By the way, guys, before I even get into playing this video, if you enjoy these types of videos, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. I would greatly appreciate it. I've been finding everything that I could potentially watch with Dana White talking about UFC Noche, UFC The Sphere for the past 4 hours to make this video. We're going to go through a lot of different things in this video, and we're going to break down what I think is actually going on. But here's him overhyping the Sphere about how it's going to happen and how crazy it's going to be. Listen to this.
Brady hits me, I go, halfway through this thing, I start to realize the star of this thing is the Sphere.
The reason I wanted to play that, the star of this thing is the Sphere. It's all about the atmosphere. Does that mean the card's not going to be that good? Because it's starting to seem like it.
And I'm blown away by it. I literally hit Craig Borsari, my head of production. I said, cancel whatever you're doing next week, and you and the crew are all coming to U2 next week. I want you to come see this. We're going to do the first fight ever here. So he comes in the next week. They see it. They walk through it. James Dolan walks me through the whole place that night, shows me all the ins and outs of it. I'm in love with it. And then we go into the creative process of what I'm looking to do and what I want. Then my team goes out and they start to execute. And as we get closer, I will literally lay out, and we're filming a documentary about the whole thing right now too.
Again, every time Dana White's asked, when we get closer, I'll let you know. My question is, I'm assuming, and this is just me guessing, but I've seen some stuff that would lead me to believe this. They need to film content in a special aspect ratio to be able to put it up on the Sphere screen, to fully take into account the massive screen that is the Sphere. How are you, that content's going to have to be filmed for those promotional packages for each fight, and you don't even have a main event yet? I mean, that just seems like, okay, you guys better get it in order, better find a main event, but we'll talk about that more in a minute.
On September 15th, Craig Borsari and his team will be the foremost experts on running live events from the Sphere. My team has completely dove into this thing head first. This is going to be the most badass live sporting event you will ever see.
By the way, I'm not going to say it right now. I'll say it maybe in a couple minutes when we see another clip. But when Dana talks about the Sphere, UFC Noche, the Sphere, does it remind you of him talking about anything else? I'll leave it at that. Please comment down below before we even get to that. I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's jump over to the UFC 303 post-fight press conference. Because here he's asked, the question is, when did you decide to be sponsored by the Riyadh season? Saudi Arabia over in the Middle East is sponsoring the Sphere. So you have Saudi Arabia sponsoring a Mexican-themed event that may or may not even have a Mexican headliner. So here's the question. Listen to Dana White's answer.
First, it was recently
I left the question in. So there you go. You'll hear the question.
announced that for Noche UFC, the UFC will have its first title partner, Riyadh season. What were some of the factors that compelled the UFC to do this?
I spent $17 million on production, and it's not even September yet.
So what that tells me right there is someone behind the scenes. Dana isn't the end-all, be-all with the UFC that a lot of people think he is. What that tells me is somebody was telling Dana White, you were spending far too much money. So he went to Turkey Al-Sheikh and he said, look, you guys want to sponsor the Sphere? It's going to be a mega event. He sold it to them. They have money they don't know what to do with. To them, Dana White's poor. They're like, sure, why not? Sure, let's sponsor an event in Las Vegas. We'll give you millions of dollars. That tells me that's what happened there. That Dana was getting kind of a talking to behind the scenes like, hey, man, you're spending a lot of money on this event. That's maybe not going to have the same profit margin as some of the other events that we already have the infrastructure for. And that's when he elicited the help of Turkey Al-Sheikh. Now, this next clip isn't super pertinent to the Sphere, but a lot of people asked me to react to this, so I wanted to put it in the video. He's asked about this partnership with Saudi Arabia, Riyadh season, Turkey Al-Sheikh, and a potential Francis Ngannou return to the UFC, or potential a kind of co-promotion of a John Jones. Well, they don't say John Jones explicitly, but John Jones Francis Ngannou fight. Listen to this. By the way, listen to the media laughing up a storm. Oh, he spent $17 million.
But just one more on that note. I know it's something you've traditionally been very much against, but what, if anything, could Riyadh season do to compel you to cross-promote? Obviously, there's that Francis Ngannou fight that you think is not going to happen, but is there anything Riyadh could do to maybe twist your arm on that?
By the way, I don't know what the answer is here, but when I initially heard this clip, I felt like Dana didn't even hear the Francis Ngannou part. I know it sounds clear on our end, but how many times does he not hear the question or missing pieces of the question? But if he did, this is a crazy answer.
Well, I actually respect Sheikh Turkey. He's a nice guy, and we have actually formed a relationship over the last couple of months. I respect what he's done with boxing. How this is the only guy that could ever pull this off, making these big fights. And the fight was good. It was a good, entertaining fight. You didn't have guys that went in there and tried to avoid a fight so they could try to hopefully get to the next big payday. I think that what this guy's done in a short amount of time is pretty incredible. So we're obviously talking about lots of different options with this guy, and I respect him. I like him. So we'll see what the future holds.
That would be crazy. Oh, and I love that. Imagine, I mean, it would be crazy because the heavyweight division would be backed up. But imagine if John Jones beats Stipe and they put together John Jones, Francis Ngannou, because Saudi Arabia is willing to pay for it. And they're like, you look, John Jones, win or lose, is going to retire. And then you could just bring in Tom Aspinall and pretend like Tom Aspinall would beat Francis Ngannou anyway, and he doesn't fight in the promotion anymore. Imagine a world where we have that. That would be crazy. Now, next clip is back to UFC Noche. I just wanted to react to that in the video. And he's asked, look, when is there going to be an announcement for UFC Noche? And again, I've been noticing this for months and months, but now that we're getting closer to it, it's even more apparent. He just diverts the question. He doesn't really have an answer. Oh, maybe next week, maybe next week, maybe next week.
I mean, I know we're less than 3 months out from Noche UFC, and I know you.
And by the way, he starts talking about a board of directors. Again, this proves to me that he was getting kind of talking to about, look, we're spending too much money on this event.
You guys had a lot on your plate this week, but is there a timeline when we can expect an announcement for the main event and all that stuff for that?
Yeah, so today was a big day because our board of directors and a bunch of other people flew out today and wanted to see where the fuck all this money was going. So,
see? Where's all this money going?
I walked everybody through the, I have this, you know how I am with these rooms, you know.
By the way, I'm telling you right now, Dana seems like he'd be a pain in the ass to work directly with.
I have to see things on a wall, and I have to, you can't just talk to me and I can't do it in my head. Like, these guys will call me up, fucking Sean, Mick, and Hunter will call me up and say, all right, we want to move this fight, we want to do this side. Stop talking to me. I'll see you in the war room. We go in the war room, I look at it, I can see it. So I built this whole room out that walks you through exactly what's going to happen at the Sphere. So I walked everybody through it today. I mean, our board of directors and all the other guys that came in were just fucking blown away, and everybody's so pumped about this thing. I don't know what the hell you asked me, but the fights will be announced soon. Is that what you asked me? Yeah.
This was roughly 10 days ago. We still don't have a main event.
We'll announce the fight soon because there's a lot of production that has to start like tomorrow on this thing.
Thank you, Dana.
It's going to be incredible. It's going to be the most incredible fucking thing that anybody has ever seen in sports.
Dana.
So, by the way, what I want to point out here is every time Dana White talks about the Sphere, it reminds me of him talking about Power Slap. Oh, yeah, this sport. Did you see these numbers? And I don't trust a word that he says about Power Slap. And I'm starting to not trust a word he's saying about the Sphere. And look what happened with UFC 300. UFC 300 delivered, but they threw it together on such short notice. And Dana White set the bar so high that he could never achieve it. Like, he acted like there was going to be some crazy, crazy main event. And we got Jamal Hill versus Alexa Pereira, and it was an incredible main event on paper, and it turned out to be pretty fun as well. And the event was crazy good, and I was defending the event. But it's like, I know he's a promoter, but it's starting to worry me a little bit that they're worried about money, and then the Sphere they never done before, and then Dana seem like he's selling us wolf tickets. It's just throwing me off a bit. And then he's asked a very important question, and this is something I've been talking about for a while as well. How will it look for the people at home? Because you're hyping it up for the audience, and if you're Mexican, you have to show up to this event. Meanwhile, they're going to be probably charging $5,000 a ticket. But he answers the question of what it's going to look like for viewers at home.
Normally when we do a fight, we have a truck, you know. There's going to be 4 trucks for this event.
Does this not sound like him talking about Power Slap? Yeah, normally we got 1 truck. We're going to have 4. You know how many trucks the NHL has? They got 1. We're going to have more trucks than every other sport combined. You take how many trucks the NFL has on your average Sunday, you times it by 10, we're going to have more at the Sphere.
There's going to be 4 trucks. And we have assembled, like, literally the most rock star team on the planet. When I eventually get you guys in and walk you through what we're doing, I mean, the amount of Oscars Emmys, Grammys, bip, 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 the list goes on and on.
I mean, is this not Power Slap? Is this not him talking about Power Slap? Is anyone else starting to doubt this event?
The team that we've assembled to pull this thing off. But there will be a director who will just be filming.
Wait a second. Is this Mike Dentit? I'm just now noticing this. Is this Mike Dentit? Is there a dent here? Look at this right here. Did someone drop this mic and it got dented and they're still using it?
The inside of the sphere to make people at home feel like they're there. What we're going to attempt to pull off, I told you a million times, you're like, oh, he's always fucking, I'm telling you right now, this will never, ever be replicated. Nobody will ever do this again. It won't make sense for anybody. It's just too much money. This will be one of the greatest things you've ever seen live, and we're going to try to pull off one of the greatest things you've ever seen on TV, too.
Again, keywords, we're going to try to. That means there's some doubts. It can't be easy to make this look crazy on TV. Like, I'm doubting it myself. And again, I'm wishing them success. I know people are going to say, Joey, you're just a hater. You're just hating on the UFC. I said from the very beginning, I think this event for people on TV, hopefully they're good fights that deliver and it's a sick event. I don't think it's going to be anything that special. And as far as fans, I can already imagine story after story of some fans coming out and saying, look, the tickets were shit. You know, I seen an interview with Dana. I searched for over an hour for this specific clip. And recently he was asked about the Sphere. And if anybody can find this clip, please send it to me. They asked Dana, is there every seat in the house going to be great at the Sphere? And Dana kind of like, well, it's not about that. It's about the experience of the screen. Because again, if you look at this, imagine sitting up here and then the octagon's going to be down. I can only imagine it's not going to be that great of an experience. So I'm telling you right now, for the people there, I've heard that there's some tickets that the view isn't great, even from like the middle, like there's some blocked views. So we'll find out. I forgot where I heard that as well. That was in an interview where someone was talking about the Sphere and going to the Sphere. And they were saying, oh, well, tickets weren't that great and blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, I think this is going to underdeliver on the TV aspect of being blown away by the production quality. I hope I'm wrong. And I think it's going to underdeliver for the fans that are there. And I think it's going to be one of those things where Dana pretends like it's a smashing success and it's really not. Hope I'm wrong. 100% want to be wrong. I'm not like ready to die on this hill just yet, but I'm just saying it's just not looking that great for everything that Dana White is saying. Now, the next thing I want to get into is what will be the main event of UFC Noche, which potentially will be UFC 306, but there's some question marks about, you know, is 306 going to be a McGregor card? You know, McGregor-Chandler potentially. Is this still going to be UFC Noche 306? All the promotional material have just said UFC Noche. So let's just pretend it's UFC Noche, but let's pretend it's still a pay-per-view event. Which means, with Dana White hyping it up as much as he is, there's got to be a title fight at the top, right? It's got to be a big title fight at the top of this event. So to answer that, it's not going to be Pantoja. Pantoja says he doesn't want to fight till late this year anyway. Sean O'Malley's an option. Sean O'Malley versus Merab is an option. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway or even potentially Volkanovski is an option as well. You go down, Islam just fought. He's not going to be fighting. Leon's going to be fighting at the end of July. Not going to happen. Dricus is fighting in mid-August. Not going to happen. Pereira just fought. I don't think the UFC is going to be like, Pereira, come save the day again for UFC Noche. Doubt that's going to happen. John Jones, most likely fighting in November, Madison Square Garden. Grasso is already earmarked for Noche. She's going to be there. But main event? Main event? I pray she's not the main event. Now, there's talks of potentially Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. 3. That's even in doubts. We're going to look at some clips from an Alexa Grasso interview recently. Weili Zhang, most likely not, and that's it. Raquel Pennington. If Raquel Pennington is the main event, I'm closing the channel down. I'll tell you that much right now. Now, the next thing I want to jump into, okay, we've gone through a couple of the options, and basically the options are Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili, Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway, or Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski. I mentioned it before we got to the rankings, but there's also the option of a Conor McGregor fight. And that's pretty much it. So you have 3 or 4 options, and then you have the potential of Grasso main eventing. But if Grasso main events, it's got to be shifted to a fight night, which could explain just the UFC Noche marketing. Now, this next clip, he's specifically asked about the UFC Noche main event, and Again, diverts, doesn't really answer. Fair enough. It's not announced yet. This was a couple weeks ago. This is on the Flagrant podcast. But then he's asked specifically, what about a BMF title fight? And then he said, oh, that could happen. Now, I'm not saying this is anything super concrete, but I found this clip, wanted to show it to you guys just so you could get full context for everything going around right now.
All the best Mexicans that we have in the contract.
Yeah, we can take
and
a
it's
hit.
pretty much guaranteed they're all going to be there. Plus,
Is there a BMF title?
plus some big guys that aren't Mexican.
So that guy just asked, is there going to be a BMF title on the line? And Dana points at him and says, I like it.
I like your style. I like your style. A BMF title wouldn't be bad either.
So could he potentially throw a BMF title on the line? Who's he going to throw for a BMF title? I don't know. Because if he's going to have a BMF title, it's got to be Max Holloway versus someone. So you're going to have Max Holloway. You would think he would want to put him against someone who's Mexican or Hispanic. So he's going to do Max Holloway, Brian Ortega for the BMF. Doubtful. Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. Maybe. Max Holloway versus Diego Lopez. I doubt it. So the BMF doesn't really make sense. Could they do Max Holloway versus Chandler as a kind of, thank you to Chandler for wasting 2 years of his career for a Conor McGregor fight that it's not going to happen, most likely? Sure, maybe. But there's not a whole lot of options for the BMF title fight. But I just wanted to include that. So a lot of people are also talking about Conor McGregor versus whoever, Michael Chandler mostly, for the main event of the Sphere. Conor has come out and said, I want to headline the Sphere. He says that he wanted that to be his second fight this year, but obviously he broke his pinky toe. He had to pull out of UFC 383. This was Dana White basically directly asked about McGregor at the Sphere, and this was his answer.
Just jumping on, I know that you have no idea about Conor McGregor yet, but considering the time frame of September.
I have no time frame. I have nothing.
I have no time frame, and I have nothing. I've already covered this in another video, but he's like, yeah, I don't know when McGregor's going to fight.
No, I just wanted to mention that the Vegas card of September, like the Sphere, kind of, it's coincidental in time with it. Like, that would be a good fit for McGregor over there. And on top
But McGregor's not even healed yet. McGregor's hurt.
all right, and
So there you go. You can not that, you can take everything Dana says. Dana does kind of, he doesn't want to reveal too much. It doesn't seem like he's too optimistic about McGregor headlining the Sphere. And if I had to guess, I don't think McGregor headlines the Sphere. So there's that. So we've kind of eliminated that. Could the BMF happen? Maybe. I'm trying to go through all the main event options. I want to show you one more clip to just show you that something's going on behind the scenes here. Because Dana says, oh, we'll announce the main event probably during International Fight Week here.
You're right. It's one of the
By the way, this is UFC Saudi Arabia post-fight.
biggest sporting events of all time, not just in this sport. And we're going to be the first live transmission ever from the Sphere.
False. The NHL draft was the first live transmission from the Sphere.
And it's not that we're withholding the information from everybody. There's just a lot of moving pieces and parts to this thing. When this thing is done, my guys will be the foremost experts in the world on how to run a live event in the Sphere. It's been crazy. So Craig Borsari, my head of production, isn't even here in Saudi Arabia for our first fight here. That's how up to his eyebrows he is in the Sphere right now. So
I bet you that guy's bitching to his wife about his boss, Dana White.
we will be announcing soon. Maybe International Fight Week next week. I'll give you guys some more information.
So there you go. More information International Fight Week. We basically got a preview of like the outer shell of the Sphere for UFC Noche. But that kind of eliminates Conor McGregor. From the previous clip, kind of eliminates Conor McGregor. Let's just actively eliminate him. So that leaves you kind of with, what, three real options. Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili, which we're going to get to in a second. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway, which would be, I guess, for the featherweight and BMF title. And then also you have the potential for Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko as the main event, which would be a massive underdeliver for the UFC, the way he's been hyping up this event. So let's move on to Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway, or potentially Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski. Well, Topuria recently did an interview, and here's some notes from the interview. It's in Spanish, so I'm not going to play it for you. Ilia Topuria spoke today in Madrid at El Matador film presentation. Date an opponent for his first title defense now looking unclear for him. Quote, I'm aiming for Abu Dhabi. I hope someone steps in. I prefer to fight prime time in Spain. So he wants to fight in Abu Dhabi, which is going to be in October. And then he said, you should ask Holloway. First, he said he needed more time to make weight. Then he had family stuff to attend. There are many names that say they want to fight me in public. I hope someone can back up their words. This is what I do. I'm a fighter. And then here's the, I guess, full press conference or full interview. So Topuria wants to fight in Abu Dhabi. My guess is the UFC could take him up on that offer, because if they want to kind of, make that Spanish market, that Spain market, they would be on in the afternoon. Typically the Abu Dhabi cards in on the afternoon. Now, would that be a little bit weird for Abu Dhabi not to have like an Islam Makhachev? Yeah, but Islam has said, I want to fight at Madison Square Garden. I want to fight here. He has said specifically he wants to fight outside of Abu Dhabi for his next title defense. So what happens if you don't get Topuria? You don't get Topuria Holloway, then what's your main event? I mean, now you've narrowed it down to Sean O'Malley versus Merab and Grasso versus whoever, because there's a potential option that Valentina Shevchenko doesn't fight Grasso. And I'm going to predict right now from everything I've seen, I don't think Shevchenko is going to fight Grasso at the Sphere. I think she's going to back out because she doesn't like that it's Mexican Independence Day. And here, Alexa Grasso talks about it in an interview.
That's the plan. That's the plan. That's the fight I would like that to happen.
She was asked, are you 100% sure fighting Shevchenko?
I mean, I have to be part of Noche UFC, how can I not be part of Noche UFC this year? So I just truly hope that she can accept the fight, and I mean, it's good for both of us,
Valentina has come out in the past and said, oh, it's not going to be Mexican, themed. It's not going to be UFC Noche. And she was dead wrong. Reporters came out immediately and said she's false on this. I think Valentina Shevchenko and her crusty lips, because she refuses to drink water during training, I think she's looking at that scorecard she got last year, which was a complete bogus scorecard, a 10-8 round in a round that she arguably could have won. She loses 10-8, which causes a draw. I think she thinks, you know what? I don't want to fight in Mexican Independence Day anymore. They're going to rob me again. I'm not saying that's a rational thought. I think it's just incompetence more than malice by the judges. Gross incompetence. But I think Valentina's not going to fight her. I think she doesn't want to fight her. She's like, I'm not fighting on her turf. They robbed me last time. Valentina's going to be left by the wayside soon, to be quite honest. And Grasso gets into it a little bit more, that she'll fight Manon Fior if it's not Shevchenko.
So is there a world where you'd have to fight someone like Manon instead of Valentina at Noche UFC?
Yes, I think that's her opportunity too. I mean, she's the number 2 contender, I think, and she's been having like a nice winning streak. So just in case, if it's not Valentina, I think it's going to be Manon.
So there you go. If it's not Valentina, it's going to be Manon. Now, I think Grasso versus Manon Fior or Grasso versus Shevchenko as a main event would be a total and utter bust for UFC Noche, considering the way Dana White has hyped it up. But let's flash back to last year, last September. What did they do? They did UFC Noche, Grasso versus Shevchenko 2, and they stacked the card underneath of it. I'm starting to get worried. The fact that you go to their events here, you scroll down, and it's just saying UFC Noche, to be determined, to be determined. I know if you click on it, it says 306. I'm wondering if they convert this to a fight night. You know what I mean? And if they convert it to a fight night, they'll just stack the card underneath of it with a bunch of Mexican fighters, maybe Yair Rodriguez, other fighters like that, Diego Lopez, so on and so forth, Brian Ortega. And they'll just say, you know what? It's a stacked card. Dana White has said the star of the show is the Sphere itself. And we don't want to take away from it with, he didn't say this, but I can imagine him saying, look, we didn't need to have a mega main event here. It's going to be a great fight night card. We're going to have it stacked with Mexicans. It's going to be a love letter to Mexico. And we're just going to make it a fight night. And then potentially add another pay-per-view, UFC 306, and maybe have that as Conor McGregor's return. Now, I'm not saying I'm predicting that necessarily, but because I'm doubtful that McGregor ever fights again. But it wouldn't shock me that they're blowing through so much money for UFC Noche that they want to save some money by not having to pay an Ilia Topuria, by not having to want to pay a Sean O'Malley or Merab Dvalishvili. Not that I'm saying that they command a crazy paycheck, but I'm just saying they can save some money there by not having a mega headliner, and they could just turn this to a fight night and say, look, it's UFC Noche. We're still stacking the card. So it's very, very up in the air right now, and I think they're still scrambling around behind the scenes. Hence, he's meeting with the board of directors, and there's talk about how much money they're spending, and they're getting the Riyadh season sponsor. But if it's not Grasso versus Shevchenko or Grasso versus Fior, which I hope it's not, that only really leaves one option, and that's Sean O'Malley. Well, luckily, Sean O'Malley spoke about it today, the day I'm recording this video. And he was asked, when are you fighting? What's an update on when you're fighting? And this does not give us a lot of promise here at all.
Yep, no fucking update for you, fellas. I'm still hoping for the Sphere. Still same shit, Sphere or December. I'm pretty sure either way it's going to be in Vegas next fight, which I'm...
Spear or December. And I'm saying Spear now like Dana was earlier. The Sphere or December. Does that sound very promising? It needs to be Sean O'Malley Merab. It needs to be Sean O'Malley Merab.
Pumped about him. Excited to go back to Vegas and fight. So, you know... The Sphere, and Dana keeps saying it's going to be something fucking crazy. And then you got Conor and Chandler maybe going around. You got Max Ilia. You got me, Merab. You got fucking some pretty big fights to possibly make. But honest to God, I have not heard from the UFC yet, and we're getting too goddamn close.
We're getting too close. AK, I need to get into training camp, which he then goes on to say, I'm kind of in training camp just in case. What kind of fly-by-night company is this? You can't give him a heads up and say, look, hey, we're gonna be having you on the event most likely, so get to training. He's got to say, oh, well, I'm going to train just in case because we're damn near 8 weeks out. Some guys like 12-week training camps. Makes no sense. He speculates about all the other fights that I've already talked about. Alexa Grasso will be on this card no matter what. But again, this doesn't seem very promising. If O'Malley's out, if Topuria's out, if McGregor's out, then what are we left with? And then his coach, Tim Welch, goes on to speculate about it as well. Listen to this.
It's probably a tough thing for the UFC. It's like they want to let you know. If they knew, I'm sure they'd let you know right away. But when you're dealing with someone like Conor McGregor, who's just one day he probably wants it, one day he doesn't, one day he's just booger sugared up, one day he's just...
I don't think they're going to trust McGregor to headline the Sphere at all. If they want to have that staple main event, I don't think they're going to trust McGregor. Dana White seems absolutely pissed that McGregor pulled out with a broken pinky toe.
They're probably waiting on that. They want to make that fight happen. They know it's going to be a huge fight. Dana wants to make the Sphere the biggest fight possible. I don't see why it wouldn't happen, but we're creeping up. I mean, we're 9 weeks out. And so hopefully something gets done. I have a feeling in this next week or the next 10 days, we're going to really know.
So it seems massively up in the air. Again, all the main events that are possible, you have a potential random BMF title fight with Max Holloway versus somebody. You have Topuria versus Max Holloway or Topuria versus Volkanovski. You have Sean O'Malley versus Merab. And then you have Grasso versus Shevchenko or Grasso versus Fior, all as potential main events. I think if it's Grasso versus Shevchenko or Grasso versus Fior, I think that is a complete bust for UFC Noche. If I had to put my money on one right now, it has to be Sean O'Malley versus Merab, right? Unless they flip it to a fight night card and make it Grasso versus Shevchenko. Because there's no way that headlines and they make that a pay-per-view. So hopefully it's Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili, but I have my doubts. I just feel like this is another big mega event. UFC 300. They're, getting down to the last second before they're announcing fights. UFC 303 left us all in the dark. It seems like this is more behind the scenes stuff. I would love to see another documentary on the Sphere and how they're putting it together right now, but we don't have any information. We know that Dana's blowing through money, and it just seems like it's headed for a massive disaster. Imagine this. Imagine they switch it to a fight night. They main event Grasso versus Fior because Shevchenko refuses to fight, which I don't think. I'm going to say Shevchenko doesn't fight at the Sphere. And then imagine they had all this hype, and that's the main event, and it's a fight night card. Think about how underwhelming that will be considering what Dana White has hyped up. It will be completely underwhelming. So hopefully, ideal scenario, Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. Why are we going to wait for O'Malley to fight in December? He fought in March. Now we got to wait for him to fight in December. That's a catastrophe. Topuria versus Holloway would be a banger. I don't think they're putting that there. I really don't believe they're putting that there. I think that's too big of a fight, honestly, for the Sphere. I think they're going to want to have that in like a massive arena. I don't know how much the Sphere holds. But again, I don't think the seating arrangement is going to be that great. Maybe they might have to exclude some seats, considering the viewing angles are probably going to be terrible. You're going to have to watch it on the screen and not actually see what's going on in the cage. And I know that's some, to a certain extent, in arenas as well, but it just seems like a catastrophe waiting to happen. Wouldn't shock me one last potential option. Imagine if Dana White and the UFC's like, oh, we're going to postpone the Sphere. Imagine if that ends up happening or it gets, postponed and inevitably canceled because we're trying to figure out what we're trying to pull off. It seems like it's taken more than they thought it was going to take because Dana White obviously isn't doing the groundwork. So Don't be surprised if that happens either. But if I had to make a guess right now, I'm not super confident. I would say Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili, co-main Grasso versus Fior. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation down in the comments. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and share the video even. I worked hard on this video, so I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video.